Hello, this is Don Milne, founder and director of Stories Behind the Stars. And in this video, I'm going to explain how we can finish the 400,000 World War II fallen stories in the next 36 months. The mission of Stories Behind the Stars is to tell the stories of all 421,000 Americans who died in World War II. We want to give each star a story, and we want to make sure that these stories can be read at any gravesite or memorial. This video is being released on September 2nd of 2022, the 77th anniversary of the end of World War II. Our goal is to complete all of the remaining stories by September 2nd of 2025, the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. At one extreme, if you only had one person doing a project like this, it would take them 1,100 years if they were doing one story a day to get through all 400,000 remaining names. Of course, if you had 400,000 people, they could get through the remaining names in just a day. Realistically, we probably aren't going to get 400,000 people to do this in one day. But it is realistic to be able to find 2,000 to 3,000 people who could average one story a week. At this level, we could get through the remaining names in 36 months. So how are we going to complete the remaining stories? Well, we have 36 months to go. We have 400,000 stories to go. That's averaging in the ballpark of about 10,000 per month. And if we do the math, and we have an average volunteer doing one story a week, we need 2,000 to 3,000 people. Let's dive into the details about how we get this calculation. Based on what we've seen over the last couple of years, we think about half of the people that participate are only interested in writing maybe just one, maybe 2 or 3 stories. And that's because they have a personal connection. Maybe it's a cousin or a grand uncle, somebody that they're related to that they want to see remembered. So having those kind of people participate in the project is great because they have this personal connection to the people they're writing about. That's about 50% of the people that help us. About 40% are those that are wanting to do this and they're able to do one story a week, and they're basically giving up a night of Netflix to do something like this, or maybe a round of golf. It doesn't really interrupt too much with their lifestyle, but they recognize that this is a worthy project, and so they're giving that level of commitment. And then we have some people that are actually going beyond this expectation. Some people are actually averaging 1 or 2 stories a day. If you take the average of this percentage of people, this ends up with getting us 1 to 1.5 stories per week. Now let's look at this on a larger scale. Let's look at 100 people who are participating in our project. This many people could do 5,000 stories in a year. That's one a week with 100 people. Let's say 50 weeks because they take 2 weeks off for vacations or other things. Just round it off to that amount. In 3 years, that's 15,000 stories. So just 100 people are able to do that many stories. Where are we going to find 2,000 to 3,000 people who can volunteer to help us on this project? If you look at the entire population of the United States, which is where we'd expect most people to come from, and we do appreciate those people from other countries that are actually already helping us. But if we focus on the population of the United States, we have 330 million people to find 2,000 or 3,000, so about 1 in every 100,000. Realistically, we can drill down a little and focus on some groups that we think may have more affinity for something like this. For instance, 75% of the people that participate in this project are age 55 and older. And if we focused on those between 55 and 74, it looks like there's 42 million Americans in that age group. There are about 17 million Americans who are veterans. And if you include family members, that number would probably easily go over 25 million. That's a good group that would be interested in a project like this. We have active duty and reserves that combined are about 2 million. A lot of people that are helping us in this project already are in that category. We think more of them would be interested in helping. And last of all, kind of a very unique category, there were 180,000 children who became fatherless during World War II. They're going to be in their late 70s, most of them at this point. But many of them have children and grandchildren, and we think this group of people would be super good at least getting the stories about their forebears who died in the war. It's conceivable that we could get 10, 20, 30, 40,000 stories from this group of people if they just focus on the one person they're related to. As far as the path we can take to get all of these stories done in 36 months, I'm looking at three primary paths. First of all, focusing on states. Next, focusing on units or ships. And also secondarily, focusing on cemeteries. When we look at focusing on states and counties, we did a Utah pilot back in 2020, and it took us 6 months to get through about 2,000 names. So granted, it's a smaller state, but we were able to get it done in a 6-month period and not a 36-month period. So with enough attention, I think it's very manageable for us to get many, many states done in the next 36 months. 40 of the states actually have World War II fallen of 10,000 or less. With an average about 5,000, you only need 30 people that are writing these stories to get them done in 36 months. And if you remember, 50% of those people are only writing 1 to 3 stories. That means you probably only need like 15 people realistically to get through almost all of the stories in an average sized state. Looking at the population of those states, it's pretty realistic that you can find that many people that would be willing to help on this project for this 36-month period. Will it be the same 15 people? Probably not, but that's really all you need to have to get through at least the 40 smaller ones. The largest 10 are obviously going to be more of a challenge, and those will be more difficult to complete in the next 36 months, but not impossible. When I mentioned focusing by unit or ship, that's actually something that's already being done by some groups. We have some individuals that have been actually taking a submarine and by themselves being able to complete the crews from entire submarines. The 70th Infantry Division contacted me this summer, and they plan to complete the stories of all 700 fallen from that division. The 405th Fighter Bomb Group is another one that's already been started on, and this is just a couple of brothers who have a grandfather who served in this unit, and they've already done almost 40 names, and they have about 20 more to go. Another example is the 380th Bombardment Group. They contacted me over the summer, and they're planning to do the 400 fallen that they lost during the war. With examples like this, I think other groups will be coming forward and doing the same thing. So we're actually attacking this problem from multiple angles. We have the state angle, we have the unit or ship angle. One other angle that I think is a focus that I think can work, especially at the state level, but also independently, would be cemeteries. Right now we're focusing on the Arlington National Cemetery, but there's also a few other very well-known cemeteries that might warrant a specific project or interest of people to work on. The National Cemetery of the Pacific in Hawaii, sometimes known as the Punch Bowl, that might be of interest to people to want to do all the stories there. Overseas, there's 25 cemeteries that have World War II fallen. Probably the two that would be most likely to want to do a special project would be Normandy, since it gets so many visitors, and also Margraten, because of the project that the Dutch have done there to have a photo for each one of the people, and also having individuals assigned to take care of those graves. It makes sense to have a story to go along with each of those. But eventually, each of these cemeteries overseas are going to have stories of the fallen. And last of all, at a state level, there's 155 national cemeteries that are where people with the military background can be buried. Not all of them have a high concentration of World War II fallen, and some of the newer ones don't have any, I suppose. But they exist in 42 states, and it could be a way to focus the attention of the states we're working on. So, for instance, I'm here in Kentucky. Zachary Taylor National Cemetery has, I think, a couple thousand World War II fallen buried there. Kentucky has like 8,000 or 9,000. We focus first on Zachary Taylor National Cemetery and get that completed. that's a feather in the cap of all those that are helping. It can then attract more attention, so we get more people to finish the remaining names in Kentucky. Here's some predictions that I have based on what we've been able to accomplish so far, how many names we have left to do, and the interest we're seeing from people that are wanting to remember the World War II fallen. I think we'll have more stories done in 2025 than in 2024 or 2023. If you can look at the growth of what we did in 2020, we had less than 2,000 stories done. And then in 2021, we had about 7,000 stories done. And now in 2022, we're probably on pace to get 20,000 stories done. I don't think it's unrealistic to expect this to grow even faster. Maybe this example could serve as a comparison. 80 years ago this month, there were less than 10,000 men engaged in the Battle of Guadalcanal, either in the ships or on the island. And by August of 1945, there were more than 1 million men ready to land in an invasion of Japan. So we go from 10,000 to 1 million in 36 months. I think we can see a similar growth in participation over a same 36-month period. I think as some of the smaller states are completed, it'll create some newsworthy events that will attract attention in the medium to larger states, and that momentum will create additional people wanting to see the same thing repeated in those states, so that those get added. And I also think that as we see some of these units and ships get all of their names done, that information is going to trickle over to other organizations that do remembrance for those units from World War II. And as they start getting completed, it's going to obviously affect all of the different state projects to help add up names there. So how are we going to find these 2,000 to 3,000 additional volunteers? We're getting some good media attention. Every time we get media coverage, it results in people visiting our website, and then many of them end up looking at our free training material, and some of those end up joining us. So that's great to get media attention. Social media is a great way. So we invite anyone that's seeing this video to share awareness of this project with the people they know. Networking is obviously great. If you know people that would be interested in this project, please pass on the information that they can contact me so that we can get them involved in getting more stories done. Partnering with existing groups, we're continually seeing more and more interest of groups that are related to remembering World War II. They already come with members, patrons, people that are supporting their specific niche. We can work with these groups to remember the fallen that are related to their group. And the last way I think we can find 2,000 to 3,000 people is the domino example. If you have one person and that one person finds 2 people and they find 2 people and so forth, you go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 32, 64, etc. And growing this way by word of mouth, it finds people that are the most familiar with this project, sharing what they've been doing with people that they think would be interested. And if we do that through enough rotations, it doesn't take us that long to get to 2,000 to 3,000. I'd really like to thank all of those that are helping with our project so far that have got us to close to 20,000 names. This is really a grassroots project. Everybody that's been doing this has been doing it as volunteers. And they're creating something that's never been done before that will last for decades. In closing, I just want to repeat that the mission of Stories Behind the Stars is telling the stories of the 421,000 Americans who died in World War II and making them available for anyone to see on their smartphone whenever they visit any cemetery or memorial, and that this can be something that we can have go forward by the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II on September 2nd of 2025. At that time, there will probably still be a few thousand actual World War II veterans, but they won't be around much past that time. So I think it'd be wonderful to have them know that when they're gone, every single one of their fallen friends and compatriots will be forever remembered anytime someone visits their grave or cemetery. Thanks everyone for helping as you can.